good folks, and welcome to a Day 4 training camp edition of Film Room /
Disguise coverage.
Got a little freestyle action happening today. Anthony Braska, joined as always by Eric Turner, and like I mentioned in the intro, we're here at Day 4 of Bill's mini camp. I definitely thought it was going to be cooler, so I'm very hot, but we're in the shade now, so I feel a little better. But from an on-the-field perspective, there was a lot going on today.
Yeah.
We saw several significant pieces from a player standpoint, from a structural and schematic standpoint that, you know, not coincidentally tied into a lot of things we've been wanting to see this offseason.
Right.
We talked about as soon as the Bills lost to the Bengals in the divisional round. So, you know, kicking to you right here, what are your thoughts after, you know, this day ended?
Hey, disguise coverage, the film room, we add context to things, right? So let's start off with that. It wasn't really like a red zone, third down type of day. They kind of mixed it up a good amount, but the context for today was there was no power. The vendors were suffering. You had to pay with cash, but it also affected the field because they didn't have music. And I felt like the practice, especially early, was a little sluggish. There were several times where some of the juice wasn't there, and you heard Josh Allen say, hey, let's go from one drill to the next. There were times even during like going from one segment to the other just looked a little sluggish, but I thought, you know, things turned around, and with the heat and things kind of picked up the more competition type segments that they put out there.
Oh, that's a good piece. That's a good piece. I actually kind of, with the no music piece, one of the things that stood out to me, all the communication you see and you actually get to hear when stuff like that is down. And Bale Inspector, very communicative today. Obviously, you hear the Josh Allen piece, but you see a lot. We saw Stefon Diggs getting into it with some guys on the sideline. It's you know, some heated back and forth between him and some of the DBs that had to be calmed down. Not in a negative way, just guys being healthy with competition. But it was a cool piece today to see that aspect with the music being down. And, you know, sticking on Stefon Diggs, and I guess that side of the ball, let's start with the offense. Thoughts today on the offense as we, again, wind down here from Day 4?
Still a lot of 12 personnel, still a lot of 21 personnel, so multiple tight end sets and even Gilliam being sprinkled in there. But I thought schematically you saw a lot of those condensed formations. So the Bills for many years have been that spread team. So the defense knows exactly how to spread and distribute on the defensive side of the ball. What we're able to see now is tighter formations, whether that's with the tight ends or even having some of those wide receivers in tighter formations where they can run it, but more importantly, pass out of it and post-snap, force that defense to kind of expand as those, you know, routes kind of distribute.
Yeah, that's a good point. Something you and I talked about early on today, just the amount of shifts and changes, what we're seeing formationally, starting in a condensed look and then, you know, kind of exploding out into a spread look, or vice versa, starting out spread and condensing down. The short motion we saw, some of the orbit motion, the fake orbit motion to Hardy, and then he stopped, put his foot in the ground, and swing pass out the front door for an easy touchdown. The versatility in the usage that we saw from, again, very early on, Day 4 training camp. We did see some of these pieces last year, but Eric, this is something that we had clamored for once the season ended, was all these different kind of looks, and it goes into something you just mentioned, like you dictating to the defense and forcing their hand. You get to see what kind of coverage they're in, or you get to set them up with disadvantageous matchups. And a piece that I want to hear you talk about was something that was highlighted for me. Dalton Kincaid looked great today, but more importantly for me, it was how he and Dawson Knox were used in a variety of ways on the offense to force those advantageous looks for the offense and put the defense in a bind.
Yeah, as we said the other day, you know, they had Knox in the backfield at times with Kincaid in the slot or in the off-wing position and kind of moved them around. So if, you know, Josh Allen saw a pressure look coming, hey, we don't even have to release Dawson Knox into a route, and maybe, you know, we keep him in the block rather than a running back being in there like Cook. So it's another one of those chess pieces, and it's an area that Knox has developed where they can use him all over the field. He maybe is primarily the inline wide tight end, but they obviously can use him in the backfield on some of these plays where maybe no one comes and then he just becomes that outlet, just like we saw last year.
Yeah, and 12 personnel has been something that we banged the drum for this entire offseason as soon as Dalton Kincaid got drafted. And it was the creativity and how they used them. You know, yeah, they're in 12, but Kincaid's in the backfield almost as like a fullback and like an offset eye, and then Knox is in the backfield. You have a traditional like 7-man surface tight end on each side, and then you got 2 tight ends to one side, or the 11 personnel look where Kincaid is number 3 in a 3-by-1. Really getting creative with how they use those guys and incorporating them into the offense from a schematic and structural piece. What else on the offensive side of the ball?
Stefon Diggs. I mean, he dominated today. It was one-on-ones, him and Trey White. 3 straight reps. He toasted Trey. Initially got him a little hezzy release on a slant route. Probably would have scored a touchdown. And it wasn't like a one-on-one period where they had double moves and the quarterback's holding on the ball. That was the first rep. The second rep, he saw the same thing, but then he broke it out to the boundary on like a blaze out or slant flat. And then the last time, it was just a 50-50 ball. And Trey, at that time, he's like, I'm going to back off a little bit. He's been roasting me. He backed off, got into his pocket.
Good position.
And then right along the boundary, late hands. I mean, so quick that we couldn't even see it. Late hands, ball was right on point, and it zipped right by Trey White, and he did not even know the ball was there because of those late hands.
He was, and you said it, and I tweeted it, he was dialed in today, locked in today, like laser focused, whatever verbiage you want to use. And for somebody who, you know, we know how tumultuous this offseason has been with, you know, the footage from the end of the Bengals game and then him missing day one of mandatory minicamp. But you see just the attention to detail he operates with on every single rep. And again, we're here at day 4 of Bill's minicamp, or training camp, I should say, and just the level at which he's already operating at. And this is like, to credit Trey as well, Trey's still a good corner. Like, I know people would see this and be like, oh, does this mean Trey has fallen off?
He's been dominant up until today.
Dang.
I will say that.
Dang.
He has been very good up until today. He just had a bad day, and you could see him after those reps and throughout the rest of the practice, his head was down. He was a little in his own head.
Yeah, a little bit. And that'll happen when, especially on that last one, like, first 2 he got beat against Diggs, and the last one you're in there, but Diggs just makes up for it with those late hands. Super dialed in. You can tell how much, whether it's this season or the gravity of everything that's been going on off the field,
right,
he's just laser locked.
But
every rep.
They baited him later in the practice too. So there's a red zone segment, and they had Knox in the backfield to Allen's right. Diggs was out, isolated basically with Trey White on him, and the defense had pressure everyone up near line of scrimmage, not one safety deep. So you heard Josh kind of check out of it, and he even moved Knox to left side to clear everyone out. Hey, they're in man coverage, bringing pressure, so they moved everyone out. Ball was snapped. He throws the back pylon throw to Diggs versus White. He won it. He won the route.
Yep.
But then Jordan Poyer came out of nowhere, high pointed the ball for interception and likely a really big return.
Absolutely. Huge momentum piece for the defense, and something, again, tying into what we wanted to see more, showing those pressure looks and then dropping out of it. So whether it's a simulated pressure or you're just rushing 4, or it is a blitz, you don't know, okay, which 5 are coming, which 4 are coming, who's dropping into what. And Cole baited him. It was a great call. It was a great execution by Poyer. Really fun to see in that red zone piece. Diggs was fired up after it.
Yeah, it was.
Just drawing back and forth with, it looked like Poyer, but really Hyde and Taron Johnson a bit.
And even the coach, Butler.
Yes,
yeah.
Butler got into it too. Let's go to the offensive line for a bit. Some rotation we've been seeing at right guard. You and I both noted how lean O'Cyrus Torrence looks versus how we saw him at the Senior Bowl. The offensive line has been a big focal point for the Bills this offseason, bringing in Connor McGovern, the questions around Spencer Brown, and then O'Cyrus Torrence falling in the second round of the draft.
Right.
The Bills bring him in. What are your thoughts on the offensive line?
Yeah, I agree. He looks slimmer, especially when we saw him up close and personal at the Senior Bowl. He rotated in with Bates today. It's a true competition, guys. Those guys, Torrance comes out with the very first segment in the run segment, and then they, just rotated throughout the entire practice. Again, no pads. So when it comes to the trenches, you got to take everything with a grain of salt. But he does look lighter and a little quicker, which is good to see. But it seemed like when they went to some of those run segments, and Bates would be in there, it was more pulls, kind of, highlighting his athleticism. And you got to keep in mind, Bates is the backup center, and they want to get him reps when it comes to that as well.
Absolutely. He's that jack of all trades up on that offensive line, play every position on the interior. Arguably, if you're super in a pinch, you kick out to tackle if you need. He's kind of that super sub, but also offers your starter caliber reps. I liked what I saw from Torrance today, just with how lean he was, like we noted, but it didn't seem like he, got shredded a little bit and leaned down and lost his power. Like, we still saw the hands, we saw the explosion in the hands, we saw the pop. You and I were talking about the one rep where he was the down block and he just washed.
Yeah, he and Brown just displaced that entire side of the defensive line.
He did that side, and he pushed down and washed down Taron Johnson, who we love and is somebody who does not get washed down easily from a strength perspective and an awareness perspective. So good to see him execute.
And that was one of those 22 personnel sets with Harris as a running back and a fullback in front as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's cool to see, tying in that piece as well. We've talked about, if Torrance wins the job or Bates wins the job, there's a different dynamic to their skill sets and who they are, which leads to different kinds of run concepts you can get to. So it's interesting to see them, with Bates in there, he and Morse were on the move consistently, getting them out in space. That's not what you want to do with Torrance. You want more of that physicality, people downhill, exactly. So we're starting to see that a little bit. It was nice to see. What else on the offensive side of the ball?
That's pretty much good. Let's go to the defense, and a guy that immediately in one-on-one stood out, Taron Johnson. And from a coverage sense, again, no pads, not much when it comes to the run segments, but regardless of what wide receiver he went up, and of course he's going up against the Deontay Hardys, Khalil, Shakirs, and those guys from the slot. He was just sticky, and when we're talking routes that had multiple breaks with different guys that guys that come out of breaks faster versus others, and he was just opening his hips, transitioning perfectly, and then making a play at the catch point. I thought he stood out, especially that first half of practice.
Absolutely, he was probably my defensive player of the day, just for that stickiness like you talked about. And it's hard to win these reps when, exactly to your point, like every single rep and individual, you're facing a different kind of receiver, somebody who runs their routes differently, different gaits, different pacing, different type of stems, different type of breaks. So you have to adjust your coverage to how they're operating. And he was just in phase consistently against double moves and watching the hips and his hands stabbing the hip and physicality, but not enough to necessarily draw a flag. You saw good hand placement, good fluidity, just real good athleticism from somebody who is one of the most important players on this defense, given what's asked of him. And seeing him succeed in coverage today was a hugely strong piece, I think, for both of us. What else on that defense side?
I mean, Puna Ford probably had the play of the day. We talked about Poyer's interception, but Puna Ford, I mean, he wasn't fooled. And again, he probably didn't have to move very far either from his defensive tackle spot. They tried drawing everyone upfield, running a screen, which they had success the first few days as far as screens go. Tried drawing him upfield. He didn't buy on it, and he intercepted Barkley and took it to the house. And funny enough, again, we talked about how there wasn't much juice from the guys on the field with no music and all that. Josh Allen wasn't the quarterback that threw the interception, but he was running down the field, got the crowd into it, running down the field, trying to strip the ball from Puna Ford, and that really got the crowd into it. So again, Josh was trying to pick guys up, whether he was on offense on the field or just again off the field, when it was one of those practices that seemed kind of down.
That was an awesome play from both those perspectives. Like watching Puna Ford read it, sniffed out the screen right away, one hand picked it, like he actually over pursued it a little bit. Quarterback tried to dump it inside. I think it was Kyle Allen, maybe even Barkley. Tried to dump it inside. He one hand smoothly picked it, turned, and housed it. And exactly your point, like it's nice to see Allen trying to be that lightning rod for that juice, for that power, considering what they didn't have today. Really nice play from Puna Ford. Some other pieces on the defensive line as well for me. AJ Epinesa dropping into coverage a bunch today, something that you've noted he's been doing regularly throughout camp so far. He did it several times in the season last year. He popped a bunch for me today. Just his awareness in coverage, his athleticism. He had a nice play in the low red zone where he got right into the passing window, forced the throw to go over the top of him, and it led to an incompletion. He had a couple nice reps in one-on-ones, beat Deion Dawkins around the edge. He's somebody who, if you can, and I recognize, I tweeted something about this the other day, like I recognize the level that he's operating at may not be equal to what people want or expected given the fact that he was a second-round pick. But he put together a quality year towards the back end of last year, especially when Von Miller went down. To see him kind of still kicking on all cylinders, that could be a really nice piece considering what we expect to get from Von, Rousseau, Leonard Floyd, and AJ Epinesa. That kind of foursome on the edge there is really starting to round into form.
Yeah, and again, no pads, so the thing to worry about with him is versus the run. Keep an eye on that as the camp kind of progresses. But yes, he has looked good. He had a really nice few rushes off the edge as well to get in there and to kind of be disruptive. So he has been primarily running with the ones, and that's something maybe I didn't quite expect, especially this early. I assumed Floyd, his skill set, getting a little more competition. But right now, it does seem like Epinesa has the upper hand. Obviously, they rotate Floyd in there, but again, wait till the pads come on and they can start to diagnose those run game fits and see how he does. Because again, with him, it's just tackling.
Yeah,
it's missing tackles, and that's that's really you want to see it in the run game and making those stops. So when it comes to that, just wait for camp and those pads to come on. But talk about the rotations at linebacker, whether it's T. Dots, Spector, and whatnot.
Looks like Dodson has kind of like the early lead on that track at that spot right now for linebacker, getting the significant amount of work with the ones. And seeing Bernard and Spector work in differently with the twos and threes. Bernard had a nice play today on the blitz, but it looks like, again, as of now, Terrell Dodson seems to be that guy who, and we'll see what happens with packages as we go forward, potentially on third downs or no passing downs, but his skill set is probably the furthest or the farthest from Tremaine Edmonds, especially from a coverage standpoint.
No doubt.
So if he wins that job, and again, Eric, this is something we talked about, we already expect the types of coverages and the coverage usages and rates for the Bills defense to change based on losing someone like Tremaine Edmonds, who's a pterodactyl in a unicorn in one body. But Dodd's saying if he wins that job, I feel like that represents an even further significant shift potentially, given his skill set and where his limitations lie in coverage.
Yeah, and of course we know he's probably got the most reps in this defense, so he's kind of got the upper hand, primarily with the ones today. There were times where, especially later in practice, they even put Bernard as a will linebacker, a Sam linebacker, in place of Milano, just to kind of get him some looks there as well. So they were mixing up a little bit. Primarily today, though, it was Dodson at Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's kick it to the third level. Corner 2, everyone's favorite, Kyrie Elam. Everyone's nemesis, Dane Jackson.
Yeah.
A lot of moving and shaking happened in that position, but you and I, this is my first day here at camp. You've been here all 4 days up to this point. Something that you noted earlier on, and I noted just from today with Dane getting a lot of work, but Dane Jackson seems to, again, this is early, we're in day 4, so we'll see how things go moving forward. But it seems like Dane has a bit of a grasp on that corner 2 spot with the reps that he's getting, and then maybe even more telling is how Kyrie Elam is being worked in with Christian Benford after Dane Jackson. So maybe we're starting to see some of the dust settle a little bit at corner 2.
Yeah, again, it's more been Dane primarily, but then later in practice, Elam and even Benford got some reps with the ones. And today, overall, on the defensive side, seemed more like a zone type defense, except for some of those pressures and pressure looks. Even those pressure looks, they're up near the line of scrimmage, they're popping out, running cover 2 and quarters. But for the most part, it seemed like it was more zone based. But yeah, Dane seems like he's got the lead, and a considerable lead, with the other guys kind of just sprinkling in here and there.
I'm just excited to watch Twitter burn. I recognize his limitations. You and I both do, and how fun the idea of Kyrie Elam is, given his skill set, what he allows you to do. But Dane Jackson does so many things well, from what Sean McDermott looks for in a corner, and how responsible he is, and how sound he is. He's just not going away. Like, as much as...
Even when he gets beat, because they had Gabe Davis on a vertical route in the red zone. He got right behind him, and the ball was sailed just a little bit too much from Josh Allen, and Dane recovered and he got a piece of it, and it hit, I think, Gabe Davis right in the head, in the back line of the end zone. So, again, even when he's losing early, he recovers, and he's around the ball. In the end, he's around the ball.
Yeah, and that was something that was a huge, not red flag, but a negative piece that kind of hung over him, really starting kind of midway of the year, especially with that Detroit game, where he was around the ball consistently in good coverage, just could not make a play on the ball, And today we saw that was a real great one. A good recovery speed, and he waited, saw Gabe put his hands up, and immediately put his hand through right between Gabe's hands, punched that ball out. Gabe even kind of gave him like a tip and a nod. That's a good play. So the players see it, I know the coaches see it. Dane Jackson's not going away. Maybe we see some kind of platoon piece. Again, training camp day 4, so we'll see what happens. What else on the defensive side of the ball?
No, that's it, guys. I mean, it was a great day, honestly. Perfect weather, a little warm, but still perfect weather. Good turnout, a lot of families, and obviously some kids. But we appreciate everyone's support. And with that said, get to cover1.football. Sign up for One Pass, become an insider. $60 for the year. A lot of behind-the-scenes content, and of course our Slack channel, right, Ed?
Well, the Slack channel is one of the best things about One Pass, in addition to everything. But it's the piece that I think you might be most proud of when it comes to that.
It's a great community we built.
That's exactly what it is. It's a legitimate community. You see,
and we saw a bunch of them.
I was going to say,
here,
not even a plug. Like, how many people came up to us today when saw the logo or recognized us from the shows, and I'm so and so from the Slack. This is my name here, yada yada. And these are people that the brand and we and the community, really, just of all the members, engage with each other regularly. And sometimes it's Bills talk, sometimes it's TV shows and fantasy football. There's multiple channels in it. It's something that's been cultivated and curated, and it's arguably the best thing about that piece. That's all. That Slack channel is also where you'll get a lot of that insider access and breaking news pieces that you'll find out. Something will flash up 2 days from now, but you already knew about it because you saw it in the Slack channel, got posted, and everybody's able to go back and forth with each other there. So it's something that Cover One hangs its hat on, in addition to the One Pass piece as a whole. But yeah, whether it's the One Pass piece, whether it's the kind words, whether it's word of mouth, whether it's likes on this video, whether it's subscribing to the channel, whether it's rating and reviewing on the audio platforms, whatever form your support comes in, myself, Eric, the entire team, the entire brand, we greatly appreciate the support that you folks give us. We say it to close out pretty much every episode of the Film Room. I say it on Disguised Coverage as well. We would not be able to do any of this without you folks, your support. And again, whatever form or fashion it comes in, we are tremendously grateful for it, tremendously appreciative of it. What else, Eric, as we wind down here?
That's it, man. That's it. Day 4 in the books, guys.
Day 4 is in the books. Day 5 happens tomorrow on Monday. We'll see what happens as Bills training camp continues to plug along. You will find no one that breaks it down better than myself and Eric and the entire team here at Cover One. So again, if you're on YouTube, subscribe to that YouTube channel. Subscribe to the Cover One Film Room. If you're on the audio platforms, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Apple Podcasts, whatever have you, subscribe to the Cover One Film Room. Subscribe to all the different shows under the Cover One umbrella. We have you covered literally almost every single day of the week, 6 days for sure, and then additional content that comes through. We appreciate you folks. We hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. For myself, Anthony Prohaska, for Eric Turner, this has been another episode of the Cover One Film Room / Disguise coverage here at Bills Training Camp Day 4. We will see you next week. Godspeed, and as always, go Bills.